I'm Eden.
Come join us as we take a journey
Through Chatham's historically black neighborhood.
We're going to begin our journey at King Street East. First stop is Mariah Plaque. So a little bit about her is she was born in Delaware and she came in the 1850s to Canada, and her family was originally German, so they would spell their last name S-C-H-A-D-T, and her family now resides in Buxton predominantly. So she was the one who created the Provincial Freeman newspaper, and at first she didn't think a lot of people would be accepting of her because she was a black woman, so she would sign her name as a man's name, and then as she got more encouraged, she signed her initials, and near the end she signed her actual name.
The two barn quilts that we'll see on the tour, they're part of the Thames Barn Quilt Trail, and each of these quilts has a different meaning or a specific message. The title of this one is Wild Goose Chase. As you can see, there are a lot more of these barn quilts as you follow along Highway 2.
We're standing in front of the First Baptist Church here in Chatham. The congregation itself to this day is celebrating 179 years. The building is a little younger than that, as they had a log building first before they built the brick building here. And the importance of this building is that when John Brown came to town, he held his most important meetings here, just behind the windows over here in a meeting room. And that is where they made his plan to raid Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. If you ever stop in for a tour, you'll learn about John Brown in our museum and see his gun. But they made up a constitution of how they would run the American government after they raided Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, where they held the United States Arsenal, and they figured if they hold the arsenal, the government has to listen to them and help put an end to slavery. So this is one of the buildings that was very important to the abolitionist movement here in Chatham.
Me is the Royal Tavern. It was run by the Griffith or Griffin family, depending on how you say it, and that was in the late 1800s to early 1900s. The top of the tavern was used for lodging, where the bottom was a tavern where they would cook meals, until sadly a fire did strike the building and the upper half was removed.
This is the Campbell A.M.E. Church. A.M.E. stands for African Methodist Episcopal Church. So in 1826, the A.M.E. denomination was created, but this building was built in the 1850s. As you'll notice, there's a lot of churches on this street. It's because there's actually division among the black community. So more darker skinned folks would come here, and then lighter skin would be at the Baptist church. And this is the home of the soup kitchen, so they still serve to this day to help the local community.
J.G. Taylor Park. It was named after Reverend J.G. Taylor, who was an active member in the community and actually one of the founding members of the Woodstock Institute. The park has been in the community for over 100 years.
This is what the Woodstock Institute would have looked like. The school was for students who were looking to do skilled trades. It was established in 1908 and closed in 1927. That same year, it turned into the J.G. Taylor Community Center, where they held dances and events. However, in 1984, it had to be demolished due to being an unsafe building.
Journey on Princess Street. Right, so behind me is McGregor's Creek. Families settled here in the early 1800s, and the First Baptist would actually baptize the members here before getting an addition to the church. And it is attached to the Thames River, so people would canoe to get around town.
Journey brings us to Wellington Street East. Welcome to the B.M.E. Freedom Park. It's on the former site of the B.M.E. Church in Chatham, Ontario. It was actually one of the first B.M.E. churches built in all of Canada. Unfortunately, it was torn down in the 1980s, but we've recycled the land to make it a park to honor the black community in Chatham. So at the center of the park is Mariah here. This is a bronze bust of her that was sculpted by artist Lane, who is actually a direct descendant of Mariah as well. She has artwork all over North America that you can look up online, but this is one of our prized possessions here at the B.M.E. Freedom Park. They also reused some of the original stuff of the church in the park here. So we have cobblestone from the church in the park. The bricks from the original church are recycled here. And the park is free for anybody to come out and enjoy, grab a seat on one of the benches here, and just enjoy the community. And there is historical plaques all over the park as well, so you can learn some of the history of the area that we'll show you a little more detail of.
As Sam mentioned, elements of the B.M.E. Church have been preserved and are incorporated in the park. The squares are on both sides of the park to outline the width of the church. Coming up, you'll see the original cobblestone. And behind the Marianne Shad bust is the original brick from the church. This site is the birthplace of the British Methodist Episcopal Church. The first conference was organized on September 29, 1856, when the Reverend Willis Nazari was elected bishop. As you can see, this is what the church would have looked like, however now it is the B.M.E. Freedom Park. It is the first British Methodist Episcopal Church in Canada, and as mentioned before, it was established in 1856.
Hi, this is the second one of our barn quotes. The title of this one is The North Star, and the North Star helped lead escaped slaves to the north of Canada.
This plaque is of Dr. Anderson Ruffin Abbott. He was the first Canadian black doctor, and a little bit about him, he helped out with the Wilberforce Institute with Josiah Handsor.
Behind these row of trees is where the Wilberforce Institute would have stood, and on the property beside us is the original barn from the school still stands.
Established in 1873, it was a primary and secondary school where they focused on Latin and math.
Dr. Abbott was a surgeon in the Civil War, and the reason his plaque is here is because he was the editor for the B.M.E. newspaper.
This is a picture of Dr. Anderson Ruffin Abbott, and in 1861 he became the first Canadian-born black doctor.
The B.M.E. Freedom Park is also home to a little free library.
This is the St. John's Lodge number 9 Prince Hall Mason Group, so it was established in the 1800s and it's still used currently.
Thanks for coming and taking the tour with us today. This is my neighborhood, and I'm so glad that you took time to take the tour. Please come and take the tour in person. We would just love to show you.
Last but not least, please feel free to check out our different social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or even our website to stay informed on what we are up to.